system is broken down into two types: central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is brain and spinal cord, and the PNS is broken down to somatic and autonomic. Somatic is sensory and motor in your muscles, and like your skeletal muscular system, and autonomic is involuntary muscles. The autonomic nervous system is broken down into the sympathetic and parasympathetic. Parasympathetic is basically conserving energy and resting and digesting, where sympathetic is stress, flight, or flight. Brain anatomy. So brain is basically broken up into three parts: forebrain, midbrain, and the hindbrain. The forebrain is where complex processes are processed, and you have emotion and memory taking place. Cerebral cortex is perception and cognition. Limbic system is emotion and memory. Basal ganglia is for smooth movements. Thalamus is a sensory relay station, and hypothalamus controls hunger and thirst. The midbrain is reflexes, inferior and superior colliculi. So it's like if you hear a loud noise, your reflexes are going to go there. The hindbrain has a lot of vital functions. The cerebellum is motor movements, and alcohol will directly act on the cerebellum. This is why when people get drunk, they can't walk properly. The medulla will control vitals of breathing and digesting, and the reticular formation is for arousal. Forebrain anatomy. So, you have the thalamus, which is sensory relay station. Hypothalamus is very important because it's involved in homeostatic functions in the endocrine system, food and hunger, and it senses osmoregulation, pH, and temperature. The ventral hypothalamus is for if anything happens to the ventral hypothalamus, you become very much hungry. The lateral hypothalamus is hunger. So LH meaning lack hunger, lateral hypothalamus. Anterior hypothalamus, if you do a lesion to your anterior hypothalamus, you will have asexuality. The pineal gland will produce melatonin, which is used for biological circadian rhythms. Diseases with the neurosystem. So Parkinson's is when you have a breakdown of basal ganglion, and you can use L-DOPA to make up for the lack of production from the basal ganglial cells. One side effect of L-DOPA is schizophrenia when you have too much dopamine. You've got the limbic system, where you've got three things: septal nuclei, amygdala, and hippocampus. Septal nuclei is the main pleasure centers in the brain. Amygdala is for fear and rage. Hippocampus is memory, and there's two types of amnesias: anterograde, anterior meaning forward, you have loss of forward memory, and retrograde, which is going backwards, you lose old memories. The lobes of the brain are the frontal, parietal, occipital, and temporal. Frontal is executive function and movement. This is where like motor cortex will be found. Parietal is sensory, visual, auditory, and pain sensors. Occipital is the visual cortex. When you get hit in the back of the head, you will lose sight. And temporal is for memory, auditory, and speech. The Wernicke's area is located in the temporal region. Different neurotransmitters. So ACH is for muscle movement. If you remember from the biology action potential, ACH is used as a neurotransmitter in the synaptic cleft. Catecholamines are norepinephrine and epinephrine, which are used for flight and alertness. Dopamine is for smooth movements. Serotonin regulates mood, sleep, and eating, and GABA is a stabilizing action potential. The endocrine system is also controlled by the nervous system. The pituitary is the master gland, which is very close to the hypothalamus. The anterior pituitary is essentially the master part of it because it regulates the whole endocrine system. The adrenal glands, you have the cortex and the medulla, where medulla is the inside, cortex is outside. Cortex produces cortisols, and medulla will produce the catecholamines, norepinephrine, and epinephrine. Neurulation is brain development. It's when you have an ectoderm and the notochord will form the neural crest, and the neural tube will be the CNS. The placenta will provide nutrients to the baby. And some of the primitive reflexes, we've got the rooting, Moro, Babinski, and the grabbing. The rooting reflex is when you brush a baby's cheek and it turns towards it, used for baby breastfeeding. The moro is the extension of arms, and basically, in case the baby falls, it will extend its arm and it will cry. Babinski is the big toe extension when you brush the sole of the foot, and grasping is grabbing onto anything that's placed in the hand.